This question's always really fun because I got into makeup when I was in like middle school going into high school, just doing beauty makeup. But what got me into special effects specifically was in high school we had Spirit Week. So every like a week, a couple times a year, each day would be themed. So, one day would be like superhero day, the next day would be supervillain day, and everyone would come to school dressed up for the day. I went crazy with that, and every Spirit Week I'd try to one up myself. So it started out as me just like coming in cute little outfits, and then turned into me coming to school fully painted blue, dressed as Mystique, or in a full fat suit with a beard to be Santa Claus, or in like seeing what I could do with makeup to make myself look like a zombie. And I kind of from that discovered that there's this whole like career people were like this whole career path people were taking in special effects that I didn't even realize existed. And so I kind of started dabbling more and more into it, and it just kind of happened. And it's funny because I always thought, like, looking back, I was a perfect target to be bullied in school, but everyone was so supportive and so excited. And it's a really funny, just a funny way that it kind of happened. Anything that V. Neil did. I mean, Beetlejuice, Mrs. Doubtfire, Edward Scissorhands. She was my biggest inspiration. She still is. I love her to freaking death. I think she's incredible. So I started out in a small town in Southern Oregon called Grants Pass. That no one really knows where it's at, but it's teeny, teeny, tiny little town. So I first started out doing like prom makeups and senior picture makeups, but the first like real gig outside of just people that knew me that I started doing was a haunted house, a local haunted house. I did most everyone's makeup for it, but I also got to be a haunt actor in it too. I don't remember exactly how I got it. I think someone had like recommended me to it or like pointed me in the direction of it. And I ended up building a really great relationship with them. And it was the most fun experience and really like pushed me to really pursuing this, because before it was just kind of like, things I could do with liquid latex at home by myself. So getting to do it on other people and see them bring these characters to life and scare people with it brought it to a whole new level for me. It was there's a big gap between the haunted house and when I moved to LA. I did the haunted house, I think in 2014 was when I did that. And then that's also the year that I graduated high school. So coming out of high school, I so badly wanted to move to LA and go to school, but I did not come from money. Like I didn't have any kind of college fund, anything like that. So I couldn't afford it. And there were no schools locally that taught anything makeup related besides like going to cosmetology school. So I decided to go to the local community college and just take as many art classes as I could. That ended up being a complete bust because as soon as I enrolled, they canceled or they cut every single art class. So I ended up having to take a bunch of random math and science classes, which I hated, but I did get to take a sculpture class, which I'm so grateful for because I use what I learned in that class every day. It's amazing. So I did that for a year and then I dropped out. And I worked in coffee for 6 years, which helped me a lot with talking to people and preparing me for the world of networking that is this industry. And eventually I just kind of, one day I literally woke up and I called my mom crying and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna move. And I sold my car, I sold half of my belongings, and I moved. It was really scary. Oh man, the biggest challenge was finances, 100%. Special effects is not an affordable thing to get into. It is so expensive. Luckily, liquid latex is pretty affordable. So that was the first few years of me doing special effects was liquid latex, fake blood, coffee grinds, toilet, like the things that I could get from my pantry or that I could get really affordably at the costume store. So that was a really, really big one. And then also just, my parents were always so supportive, always so supportive. Like they never for a second doubted that I could do this, but they also didn't have the means to order me the expensive products or help me get to a fancy school in LA and whatnot. So there was a good chunk of time where I felt so defeated by that, so defeated. And I mean, a ton of aspiring students do, not even just in special effects, but in all kinds of fields. School's expensive, moving is expensive, living on your own is scary, especially in a state where I don't have any family that live here. So I think living with that for a while was so hard because it really did feel like small town girl, big city dreams. Like it just wasn't going to happen for me. But I'm so lucky that I didn't have a single person that didn't believe in me. I mean, the people that I went to school with, my parents, my friends, everyone really, really believed in me and like wouldn't let me forget about this dream. I heavily relied on my favorite horror movies and the internet. The internet is an incredible place. Sure, there's like a ton of, YouTube videos and stuff like that, but also all of these top artists have so much history of their work detailed out in tons of articles all over the internet. So that was one of my favorite things to do is I'd look up V. Neil, I'd look up Rick Baker, I'd look up all these legends in the industry and read about their work on each one of these movies and how they achieved this look and what kind of prosthetics they used. I would go on social medias, I would go on these articles and I would look at the photos and like zoom in on them and really dissect them and pay attention to what kind of brushes were they using, what kind of products were in the background of the photo. So that accompanied with just tons of practicing at home. And as I said before, I didn't have access to all of these big fancy tools that they did. So I used what I did have to try and recreate what they had. So I got really good at layering and smoothing out and blending liquid latex and using more non-traditional products that were still safe, of course, to mimic what they did with these fancier, more expensive products. And I think that it's not an easy path. Going to school would have been so much more streamlined, of course, but I think that one of the things I'm the most grateful for is that I am self-taught and that I did start the way that I did because it forced me to be really innovative and like test my creativity and figure out how to make things look similar to theirs using, a couple things. I think first and foremost, networking. And by that, I mean being comfortable with starting conversation with people, whether that be other makeup artists or photographers, videographers, producers, directors, talent, just being comfortable holding a conversation with them and not with the sole intention of getting your foot in the door, but to like genuinely get to know them, like make friends. When you're easy to talk to, when people like hanging out with you, they want to continue working with you. They're going to pass your name along. They're going to bring you onto more projects. So I think that that is a super, super important part of coming into this industry specifically, even if you're not a makeup artist. I would say if you're just starting out, it's so important to take every single job. Every single job. Some of them might not be as glamorous as others. Some of them might be lower budget or really easy or short gigs, but it's so important to like get those reps in, not only for your own skill set, but for also like getting your punctuality and your the pace at which you work. It's so important to get those reps in, and it will pay off as time goes on. You will get the larger budget jobs, the dream gigs and things like that. But at the beginning, you really you gotta be hungry and grab everything that you can. I would love to. That's something that I have put a lot of thought into because I get messages on Instagram and Facebook and like all my social medias. I get messages all the time from younger artists in all different parts of the country and in the world even, asking me questions about how I did certain things or like if I went to school and what school I went to or what I would recommend. And it warms my heart because I didn't have that. I was so shy when I first started getting into makeup. I didn't really have the guts to message artists and ask them questions. So to have young people coming to me looking for advice from me and like pointers is it's so cool. Like it makes young me so happy. I would love to mentor at some point. I think right now I want to continue focusing on my skill sets and like really honing in on things that I want to improve on and make sure that I will be a good mentor. But I do love the moments where I get to pass on a little bit of knowledge or kind of like coach them through something they're working on that they're having trouble with. I think it's so cool. The first one that comes to mind is the short film that I made with my friends, because it was so spur of the moment. Like it happened so quickly. Me and Joe, our camera guy today, we had just started working together on some projects and really just kind of started talking. And it just, as soon as we started talking, it all just kind of like the ball started rolling. He brought up the idea of like maybe filming something together sometime. And I had a project that I wanted to bring to life. So we got together and then each of us brought a friend. And within the span of a couple weeks, we kind of made the whole thing happen. And it was the coolest because even though I have no experience in making any kind of film or anything of the sort, everything flowed so smoothly and it was so much fun from start to end. It felt effortless, which I think is just like it's just fate, honestly, that the right people really come together and magic just kind of happens. And then one other one that comes to mind is I grew up playing Diablo a lot. Like I was a huge Diablo kid. I would stay up all night on my parents' computer playing it. And so this year I got to go and do some cool like Diablo inspired makeup for the Diablo 4 release party at Activision. That was the coolest thing ever because I was just thinking back to my parents yelling at me to get off the computer because this is when we had dial up. And this was before I was even into makeup. And so for it to just come full circle where now I'm working with this company on the release of the game that I was so obsessed with. Oh man, so cool. Absolute dream. Communication, first and foremost. I ask a million questions because I want to make sure that I fully understand my client's vision. A lot of times they give me creative freedom, which is awesome, but it's when you're not the makeup artist, it can sometimes be hard to communicate exactly what you're seeing in your head. So I love asking tons of questions, pulling up references, and then if they do give me creative freedom, I always go straight to my iPad and I drop a little sketch and I'll present it to them, take any feedback, make adjustments, and really hone it in before actually doing the prosthetics. Oh, they influence each other so much. And I love it. I love when I get to combine beauty and special effects. And we're seeing it a lot more in the editorial side of makeup, where like with Paper Magazine and these more edgier brands are doing these really incredible glamorous makeup looks, but including in prosthetics to kind of like warp certain features of the face. And I got to do one of these not too long ago for a designer here in LA, where he has this very almost like BDSM sort of style to his designs. So I got to do this really intense black eye, but also bring in some like various different piercings like all over the face, which was so cool because it I got to use both my beauty and my FX kit. And I think that it's so much fun because it's not traditional beauty, and it does kind of like break those rules of what traditional beauty is. And it's my favorite, man. It's so much fun. It's so important. It's, I cannot say it enough. It's so crucial. To be a talented and skilled makeup artist is important. Of course, you need to know how to do your job and do it well. But I 100% believe like networking is 75% of the job. If you don't know how to network, you're not going to get the jobs to show off your skills. So taking every job, talking to every person, and getting really comfortable holding a conversation. It can be very intimidating, super intimidating. I've been on numerous productions where I'm terrified because all of these people seem like they all know each other and I'm the odd man out. But really forcing yourself to put that to the side, they're all just normal people. Go talk to them. They're going to talk back to you. That's going to make a huge, huge difference. This is a great question because this is, I mean, actively being discussed and debated currently, what with the strikes and whatnot. I think that AI is, from certain standpoints, it's so fascinating. I mean, I can't lie. I've definitely messed with some of the like AI photo generators and things like that, and it's cool. But I do think that it's also really scary for all of us artists and performers and actors because there are a lot of people who want to use it to save money. It's not an ethical way of creating. The way I look at it is I think the AI is really fun to play with. It can be, fun to generate random things just for the heck of it. But I think that the more we use it, the more our personal creativity is going to suffer because of it. If we're just relying on something to, we type in a couple words and it spits out the work for us, we're not putting in the work anymore for it. We're not challenging our brains and really digging into who we are as people and how we identify and the way our brains work to create art and like make this beautiful piece of work that comes from us individually. We're relying on a computer to do that instead. So I am a little bit concerned for what the next few years are going to look like. I do have a lot of faith in the fact that there are so many of us that stand with practical effects, stand with creating our own art and supporting artists, as opposed to kind of like giving in and saying, well, times are changing, got to move with it. A lot of production companies are doing a really good job at highlighting and supporting and continuing to use practical effects over AI generated. I'm just really excited to see how we evolve more, what with like 3D printing specifically. I mean, even with life casting, studios are using like body scans and stuff like that, which is just incredible. I mean, it saves so much time. It's a digital copy now, as opposed to, like covering someone in alginate and going through the whole process. It's so cool and it's so fascinating. I was just talking the other day about we finally had that switch from the hard contact lenses to soft contact lenses and how monumental that was for not only from like, you know, an outsider looking in being like, oh wow, that looks great, but for the actors. And it was just like, it seems like such a small change, but it's been a huge change for what we can do with contact lenses nowadays. So I'm really excited to see where we are now in a year or 2 years or 3 years, like what things are going to change and develop, and different ways that we as a community of artists are going to get innovative with the technology and things we have at hand. I'm gonna say V Neil again. I I mean, I admire her work so much, but I also just admire how much of a pioneer she's been in the industry as a woman. I mean, in a field that has been predominantly led by men, it's so awesome to have a woman who like jumped in and has created some of the most iconic characters in film history. I mean, Mrs. Doubtfire, incredible. Edward Scissorhands, Captain Jack Sparrow, like the list goes on and on. She's so iconic, and I would love the opportunity to get to work alongside her and see firsthand how she creates these looks and ask her questions and just be a sponge and learn from her. I think doing something like a really drastic character would be fun, but like she just does such a great job with the realism, not necessarily the fantasy thing, like Beetlejuice, for instance. Beetlejuice is, you know, not a super realistic person or character, but like Mrs. Doubtfire, for example, like her skin tone and the texture that she creates, and I like that's what I want to learn from her. I want to just watch her do it. I want to ask her questions. I would love to do something like that with her.
The ultra realism.
Yes.
Yeah, something like I'm thinking. I don't know who the makeup artist was on this, but the movie with Dick Cheney, the Vice. Did you see Vice?
No.
Okay, the Christian Bale. He looks completely different. Or the new Batman with Colin Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just unrecognizable. So yeah,
Good.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that would be. I mean, literally, I'd do anything with her.
Okay.
So, Vinil, if you're watching this. Last year for Halloween, the day of Halloween, actually, I had already booked. I had a full body paint. I think I was doing like Samara from The Ring, and then a zombie. And so my day was already pretty full with those two. And then I got a call at like 1 p.m. as I'm getting my kit together that Tyga was going to be Michael Jackson's Thriller for Halloween, and he needed 4 zombies to accompany him throughout the night. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, when does he need this? And I was given 3 hours. 3 hours. So I was able to recruit a friend, and the two of us made these 4 zombies, this one other zombie, and this full body Samara character happen in 3 hours. We didn't have any prosthetics to start. We literally ran to friends and just grabbed like Neanderthal foreheads and like random prosthetic pieces that weren't necessarily for zombies, but we had to be creative. And we just like really put our noses down and just got to work. And it was crazy. It was hectic. It was stressful, but it was so much fun. And man, seeing the pictures later on in the night, I was so proud. I was so proud of both of us for making that happen. It's never too big of a dream. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if you don't have any schools near you. You can make it happen. It is worth putting the time into. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it or that it's too hard of a field to get into. Because if you're passionate enough, if you have the determination, that's going to triumph no matter what. And cleaner makeup brushes.